Hi everyone, welcome to the Practical Gardener. In today's video, we'll see how we can convert a plant that is growing in regular soil into something called semi-hydroponics. Now, semi-hydroponics uses the media like LECA. So these are also called clay balls or hydrotron. So this LECA media has been soaked in water for 24 hours and then I have removed the water, and so this is wet LECA media that is there in this. And then what you need for semi-hydroponics is nutrient mix, or there are three different nutrient mixes and you can see 1, 2 and 3. So this one here is the nutrient for growth. This one is the micronutrients, which are also very important for plants, and this one is the nutrient for blooms. So these mixes in different quantities is what makes up the nutrient water for semi-hydroponics. And why do we need to add nutrients? Because this media, the LECA media, is inert and it does not have any nutrition. So if you're growing plants in LECA, they do require some external help and nutrition, and that is why you use the nutrient mix. Now, this nutrient mix is to be added in very small quantities. For example, this one in about a liter of water, you need to add about a milliliter or 2 milliliters of growth mix, 1 milliliter of micro mix, and 1 milliliter of bloom mix. So that's what the constitution is. And what I have done here is already I have prepared the pre-mix in 10 liters of water. This one, it will come with its own different nutrient mix, will have different directions and how much you need to add to a liter of water. There are instructions given on bottles. You don't have to use just this brand. You can use any nutrient mix that you like. And I have pre-mixed it here in a 10-liter bucket, which then becomes easy to water all the plants with, or use all the plants with. Now these are some of the plants that are already growing in LECA. So if you see my plants, normally with semi-hydroponics, you need to have two pots. One is the internal pot, in which could be a netted pot which has holes in it, wherein you plant the plant. Now I'm going to do that now. So if you see this plant, I have removed the plant from soil. I have nicely washed all the roots so that there isn't any soil on the plant. There are two different plants here and they are both the mirabilis actually. So I'm going to grow this mirabilis in LECA. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to hold this together. What I could also do is, I could use one of these to tie this stem up so that it doesn't move as well, right? So that is another thing that I can do. Let me do that. Don't cut the roots, but you can just tie the stem. Don't make it too tight. It is only to hold the two together. Okay? And any excess, once you have done this, any excess you can cut it off. Okay, now the plant will not move. Now put it into the pot wherein you will add LECA. Again, to remind you, this should be a netted pot. This internal pot should have a hole. Okay, and what we do is, let me keep this aside, this as well. Now this is pre-soaked LECA. Hold the plant and start putting the LECA around the roots. As I said before, this is nicely been soaked for over 24 hours. Okay, so you will find some LECA falling off, etc. Don't worry about it. The smaller pieces might come off. So this is the internal pot. Now the plant is quite sturdy. Once we have this, now the external pot. Now this pot should go into a pot which has your nutrient mix. And how much nutrient mix do you add? Normally you add 1/3 of the pot, not more than that. So you need to add only 1/3 of the pot. Don't soak and submerge the entire. We are not trying to grow the plant in water. We are trying to ensure that. And why do we use LECA? LECA has a wicking property. That is, even if the roots are somewhere here, so it will wick the desired amount of water from this external pot. So as I said, I have already pre-mixed this. So I'm going to use a cup, add it to this. It's 1/3. That's why I use this cup. So it's 1/3 the water, if you can see the quantity of water. Now your plant, move it into this and you're done. Okay, now all these extra things that have fallen off, you can always prepare. So now your plant is ready for LECA. Okay, now what is the advantage of moving to LECA? A few advantages. One is, because the media is so inert, there are very few pest attacks on your plant. So most of your fungus gnats, all of your a lot of pests will come on the soil. So since there is no soil, this is a soilless media, there is no pest attack. The second one, which is a big one, is that this way you don't have to keep worrying about watering your plants, especially if you're traveling. Okay, so this nutrient mix will last you for at least a couple of weeks. Okay, depending on the weather, of course, depending on where you keep the plant, etc. But for me, at least a week or 10 days is something that this will sustain. That is if you have nicely soaked the LECA earlier. If you don't soak the LECA, if you use dry LECA and then use this water, or it will quickly, within 1 day, you will see that your pot is dry. So pre-soaking the LECA is very, very important. Soak it at least for 24 hours in a bucket. So again, advantages of pre-soaking it is all the dirt and grime that the LECA has will be in your bucket of water. So only clean LECA you will be using. And secondly, because it is already pre-soaked and it's taken in water, it will only take water from the reservoir as and when required. Otherwise, it will try and absorb as much of water as required. So this is the advantage of using the semi-hydroponics mix. Now, few things again to remember. You can do this with regular water, but your plants will not grow well because they don't get any nutrient. There's no nutrient in LECA, so you will have to add nutrient water. The other thing that you can do, especially with when you're doing it and when you're at home, is once in a while just remove the inner pot and run water through this inner pot or under the tap, etc. So if there is any salt buildup, anything that you have in the nutrient mix, that will get flushed and it will rejuvenate the entire pot. So that's another thing that you can do maybe once a couple of weeks, etc. Whenever you're trying to change the nutrient water, try and ensure that you flush the inner pot once very well and clean the entire system. So otherwise it's really maintenance free, especially for your indoor plants, especially for plants that you kind of want to keep and forget. This is a great way. For weeks together you can water it once and then forget about it. Okay. Now the next thing is, what kind of plants do well in LECA? I have seen that most of the monsteras, philodendrons, as well as you can grow orchids in this. You can grow Hoyas in LECA, etc. So there are certain plants that grow well. Now there is another way that you can use LECA. You can use it this way as well. That is, use a glass bottle, or for that matter any kind of a clear glass. If you see here, you have two layers. Here it is single layer. I have directly used LECA in this glass bottle. I am currently growing this bamboo in here, and I have added a little bit of water into this. So these are water plants itself. You can grow them in LECA as well. Or regular plants like this you can grow in glass setup like this. The advantage of this is you don't need to like you don't need an inner pot and outer pot. The disadvantage is because it is glass and it is exposed to light, there is a very high chance of algae growing in this. That is why I don't prefer this as much as I would use the double layer method. But it's if you feel more comfortable growing this way, you can grow it in a glass setup like this. And this takes a lot lesser space because you don't need 2 layers, you don't need a netted pot and all of that. And if you have any bottles at home, thick bottles, you can use that for that. So this is all about hydroponics. So this is something that I have been dabbling in the last few months, and I have found some fantastic results, especially with philodendrons and with monsteras, some great results. You can use, like for instance, if you see this pink princess, I'm using it in conjunction with the moss stick as well. So you can use the same way as you would be growing in a pot in soil, just that instead of soil you have LECA, and of course you have the nutrient mix. So that is the only difference. So these are some of the other plants that you can see here. There is a Birkin, there is the Adansonii here, you have lovely variegated, this is the sleeping pothos that is there, some alocasias in here, etc. So there are a lot of different plants growing in hydroponics. So that's all about semi-hydroponics. I hope this was helpful and it's given you a kind of an understanding of the basics of semi-hydroponics if you want to try this out. Okay, so thank you once again for watching. Bye.